Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be an interesting one. I have with me today Natasha Ganem with Lion Leadership. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about Lion Leadership. How are you serving folks?
Right. So Lion Leadership is a consortium of really smart and talented consultants, facilitators, and coaches that are dedicated to helping creative and growing companies get ready for what's next. So whether it be scale or shrink, we tend to the people side of business. We offer in-house management, leadership seminars, consulting services around sales strategy, culture, cultivation, strategic planning, and we also offer one-on-one coaching services for executives, founder owners, and mid-level managers.
Now, who typically hires you? Is it the executive team or maybe the board of directors? Who hires your firm?
Usually the executive team or the owner founder. We tend to serve companies that are between 50 and 300 people. And so in terms of board of directors, a lot of times we're just dealing with the upper level management or the people in that organization who are trying to move their career, up and to the right.
Well, since leadership is in your name, I was wondering how you're counseling your clients about how to lead during this kind of coronavirus situation we're dealing with right now.
Well, there are a lot of different aspects to that. So leaders right now are thinking about, well, how do I lead my team that's now remote? And they're thinking about, how do I lead my team towards an uncertain future? And they're thinking about, how do I lead my team in this period of change? So it really depends what the leader has going on. If they're, having to lay off employees, if they're having to scale their company, if they're dealing with remote workers and the like. So there's a lot more to unpack there.
So I guess you have to understand where they're at and what's the priority in order to help give them the appropriate counsel.
That's right. And I would say, it is funny. A lot of people are asking me, how do you lead during uncertain times? And honestly, Lee, my response is the future is by definition is uncertain. It always was. All of a sudden, we're just now paying attention. Companies who came into this moment in our economic history, with the mindset of, we don't have a crystal ball, we never did, they're prepared for this. But the companies, especially the ones that we serve that are fast growing, scaling rapidly, creative, young startup companies who were taking bold steps and making risks until just a couple of weeks ago, this feels like a massive brick wall has hit them.
Well, it's one thing to say that change is happening all the time, and then another thing to deal with a disruption of business to this extent, this dramatically. So those, to me, are slightly different things.
Yeah, that is true. This sort of change is requiring how we interact with our employees, with the way we interact with our clients and customers, as well as down to the type and format of the products and services that we sell. So yeah, change in this instance is different than perhaps the more linear changes we've seen in the past.
So now, if you're a company that has to make tough decisions like furlough hundreds of employees or you may not exist, how do you kind of recommend they go about doing something dramatic like that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing to recommend is to not live in the minutia of the moment and to keep the perspective of long-term planning in mind. Long-term folks are going to need to mitigate employees leaving disgruntled because that can impact reputation. Folks are going to need to mitigate survivor guilt for those who are not laid off because that can jeopardize morale and productivity. And folks are going to need to mitigate workload damage because presumably the people that they do have to lay off or let go did do something valuable for their company 8 hours a day. So intentional, thorough, and creative planning is needed for that sort of change and to manage it effectively. Collaboration with multiple parties that will be impacted is required, and clear communication to the parties that are exited and the parties that are not exited is required. And the one thing I can say is, owner founders, department heads, they can't do this safely on the fly. If they're sitting down, making a list, sending it to HR to handle the process of letting people go, it's a bad idea. It's a better idea to, even during these urgent times, sit down and have a day-long facilitated planning event led by a change management professional to help people walk across the bridge. I find that, clients who understand this do this, but other clients think, oh no, I'm trying to save money. The last thing I want to do is bring on another 1099 to help me figure out how to do it. But bringing in a change management professional to help you, deal with your people in a way that won't cause, a damaged reputation, poor morale, productivity, and workflow damage is a drop in the bucket compared to the cost on the other end.
And the unintended consequences that can occur if you do this kind of in a sloppy manner.
That's right. And I also find, one mistake that people are making is that we have this myopia of, I've got to cut costs, I've got to cut costs wherever I can, but it's to the detriment of the top line revenue. So some businesses, we're trying, myself, my team members, when we get them on coaching calls and we get them on consulting calls, we're trying to make sure that they're not making quick decisions that make sense financially, but that they also make sense for a snapback plan. When this is all over, are they going to be able to survive given the decisions they're making today?
And are you finding any organizations kind of taking maybe a more optimistic, let me figure out how I can best navigate this and maybe turn some of the negative into a positive and see where there's opportunity, maybe there's a way to kind of allocate resources differently or in a maybe more creative manner? Are you seeing some of that, or is it more of a fear-based kind of response from some of the clients?
No, I am seeing I'm seeing a mixture of the both. Some clients, money is a finite thing, and when it runs out, it runs out. So people are, nervous and fearful. But when we can get them on the phone and start brainstorming with them, it's easy to turn it into okay, this is a fact, but how do we turn the corner here and get creative, and how do we get innovative? What are the new products we can be offering? What are the new ways we can be reaching clients? What are the new ways we can be talking to employees? How can we weren't expecting all of our people to go remote, but how can we utilize this to the best capacity? Is there any way that what seems to be this massive brick wall in our way, is there actually any way that this could catapult us to greater success in the future? And those are the sorts of conversations we have with clients day in and day out.
Because, this isn't the first crisis to hit us. Maybe individually for some people it is, but as a whole, there's been crises throughout history. And during a lot of these crises, some companies thrive and come out better at the end of the day. Are you finding ways to kind of keep the morale up or help your clients keep the morale up?
So it's interesting that you say that. Yeah, the clients that have been working with us for a long time, the companies are actually in a good position. They already have this positive mindset of, okay, it's a challenge, but challenge can lead to something even better. The companies that are now coming into our doors in panic mode, they are asking, how do I keep morale up right now? And the answer is, you need to keep your morale up, right? Culture and emotion starts at the top of a company. So if we're talking to the owner, founder, or the COO, or the leader of a vice president of a department, our answer back is, remember how you're showing up at work. Remember who you are, even when it's remote. Like what, emotions are you projecting, and what sort of confidence are you projecting? If you're terrified and nervous, your entire company is going to be terrified and nervous. And if you are terrified and nervous and you need to bust through that, it's always fine to be a real person and say, hey, we're looking for the best innovative ideas we can to survive this thing. Science shows us that, good ideas rarely come from a homogenous group of people. They rarely come from a group of people who are stressed or threatened, and it rarely comes from people who have been inside the organization for a really long time. So even what we've also been doing to boost morale for company leaders is to make sure they're reaching out, they're asking for their people's opinion, they're asking for the opinions of people outside their organization, because that new blood and that new life really does help.
Now, do you have any tactics for companies that are maybe for the first time having a remote workforce? Is there any tips or tactics that you find are effective in order to lead a remote workforce that, especially for someone who's never done this before, are there some things they can be doing, like whether it's a cadence of meetings or calls, something that can help them kind of get through this?
Yeah, I really like the way you say cadence of meetings or calls, because right now, not many things are predictable, but we can be consistent. So I've told all of my clients that are, especially those that are founder owners, that their face is the most important thing right now. And what I recommend specifically is a 3-minute video recording from either the company owner, the department head, the COO, whoever the person needs to be, sent out to everyone in the office every Monday morning at the very same time with a short, clear, powerful message about how things are going, and a message about how to inspire the weekly activities. And then outside of that, to answer your question about, leading and maintaining remotely, for these very same people who I'm recommending, hey, do this video once a week and send it to everybody, I'm actually recommending that the less they do, the better. And using this time to experiment and letting people build this remote culture is going to be the most productive strategy. Now, never in my career have I said, less is more in this capacity, but this is why I say that. Changing from an in-person work group to a remote work group is definitely going to change everything about the way our organization operates. But there's something about using technology to run meetings that allows for all the in-person drama, tension, and annoyances that tend to come up during stressful times to dissipate. Negative emotion that trickles into meetings is contagious, but it's not as contagious over Zoom. So I think that leaders who stick with the consistency of a video message once a week at the very same time, that's something that employees can depend on, and then step back a little bit, are going to find that organically people begin to work better together and like each other a little bit more with the system.
Now, how do you recommend a leader kind of balance the reality of the situation? And it might be some not great news. Like, look, normally we have our clients pay us and they're not paying us. Or normally we have this much revenue coming in and it's not coming in. With kind of that optimism and the plan when there is bad news kind of happening? Like, should they just be totally honest and transparent and say, okay, this is the reality as it is today? And then people might freak out, but at least they'll know the truth, as opposed to just kind of trickling down the truth in little bites.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question, because in the literature, we've been reading for years, like authenticity and transparency and authenticity and transparency. And that is true. I always recommend that leaders be authentic and transparent with their people. But the key to remember is not to be stress reactive. So, part of leadership is being able to self-identify stress emotions or negative emotions. And when you start feeling the hair on the back of your neck kind of stand up, or your feathers get ruffled, or you're irritated by someone, part of the skill of leadership is to understand that's what's happening and to stifle it. So you do have to have some sort of a stoic nature to be a strong leader and a strong manager. But that doesn't mean you need to be dishonest or not have integrity. I think most understanding people are open to the idea of their leadership coming forward and saying, this took us off guard like it did the rest of the world. We, don't have all the answers, but we have a plan to get answers together. There's a crisis response team that we've assembled. They're going to be meeting every morning at 9 a.m. to work through these problems. We're going to communicate with you every Monday at 10 a.m. to let you know what's going on with the company. Our plan is to be open and transparent. We're seeking good ideas from innovative people. If you have any ideas, email us at this email address, and we're going to keep this conversation going together. Also, during these sorts of times, leaders can balance hard news and hard truths with optimism by zeroing in on their mission and their vision and their values, if they have a firmly squared up strategic plan and common phrases that are part of the organizational fabric, they can lean on that language and on that messaging to remind people that they are bound together and they're dedicated to their workers and they're going to do everything that they can to help everyone get through this safely. But there's no reason to say, oh, we're not going to cut anyone, and then you do. There's no reason to be dishonest. It just needs to be presented in a professional, empathetic manner that is standard across great leaders.
Right. And I understand from the leader standpoint, this might be tricky because it's not like they're like, I want to cut people, but that's just the reality of it. And then the people are saying, well, do I have to start looking for a job? They want some certainty and they want some guarantees, where in this environment, it's very difficult to guarantee anything.
That's right. And people don't worry about their job until something like this comes up, and then they really start to worry. But the question is, if people have made themselves indispensable to a company, then they're probably the right fit for the company, and the company is going to want to keep them. What I see right now is companies are, for what it's worth, for people that were low performers and they just didn't want to go through the process of exiting them before, now they're using this almost as an opportunity to get poor performers out of their organization. And I'm not really happy with that strategy, because I think that this shouldn't be a call to action to do that. But poor people who know they've been poorly performing have a right to be concerned right now. And that's not necessarily an indication of the economic climate, but they should have been worried beforehand as well. On the bright side, for people, and I have talked all week to people who've lost their jobs, the good stories are the ones that didn't lose them by surprise. The bad stories are the ones that were totally shocked. But the good news for those people is that there are a lot of people hiring right now. So they might be able to find a job that's a better fit for them, where they'll perform at higher capacity. And maybe this is just kind of the shakeup they needed to, get a better job for themselves and their family anyway.
Right. There's, like you said earlier, change is happening every day, whether there's a crisis or not, and people have to manage change to the best of their ability. And some people's futures might be freed up, and that just might be a better fit for them somewhere else. I mean, this is happening around the globe, and I believe we'll get through this. But there might be some, change and disruption for some people. Now,
yeah, that's right. And the question is going to be like, how do you navigate that change? I mean, if change comes and if life throws you a curveball, are you going to lay down on the field and do nothing about it? Or are you eventually going to stand up and figure it out? And the people who stand up quickest and take action to figure it out are the people who are going to, come through on the other end a little bit better. And honestly, that's something that coaching can help with, because, you can't expect everybody to do everything with perfection by themselves.
Right. I mean, even the greatest leaders have coaching of some kind, mentorship of some kind. I mean, everybody needs help, whether it's a human coach or it's a book or some sort of inspiration. I mean, everybody needs help from other people. It's difficult to live in this world alone.
That's right. I used to stay away from the analogy of, business coaching and athletic coaches, but now I've gravitated back to that analogy because I can't help it. We don't look at a football player who is trying to win a game and expect for them to do it on their own. Right? They have a coach that's with them day in and day out, helping them prepare, helping them find their blind spots, helping them think through like different strategies and tactics to, get across the line. And business owners and managers are very much the same way. I don't know why we would expect for them to know their blind spots and be prepared to win and know the strategic action they should take unless they have an objective third party coach in their corner.
And the question isn't, to me, it's not a matter of like using the analogy or not. To me, it's like, why wouldn't you take advantage of every tool and resource that's available to you if at the end of the day it's going to give you a better outcome? Isn't the outcome what you're trying to do, or is it just an ego thing that says, I want to do this by myself? I mean, if you're trying to get a good outcome, then use every tool you have at your disposal to make that happen.
The hesitation that I see is people get a little bit of sticker shock when they see business coaches price tag, and they think, oh, well, I don't want to spend a couple $1,000s on this. This seems like too much money to spend. But when you start to think about it as an investment, like this, $1,000, $2,000, however much it is actually going to make me $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 through my business, well, then it becomes a no-brainer. But people do get a little bit of sticker shock, especially now when they're like, we're trying to cut costs, not add 1099s. And to that effect, Lion Leadership and our team through the month of April is offering free 30-minute coaching sessions for that reason, so that people can understand, like, coaches really can help, and the money that you expend on them is a drop in the bucket compared to the type of revenue they can help you produce.
But do you really think it's a money thing? You think it's a dollar amount, or it's not a more a symptom of maybe they don't want to be vulnerable, or they don't want to think they need help, that it's more of these kind of softer emotional reasons behind them not choosing a coach? You think it's the actual investment?
I do. I think it's the investment and the time. They'll say like, oh, I don't have the time. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And they never will have time for it unless they, prioritize it. The people that we coach, a lot of them trumpet the fact that they have a coach to their colleagues, and they, bring their coach in to do seminars for the company or to do team building, personality assessments, 360 reviews. But some of them, they hide the fact they have a coach. And I think that's how that softer emotional side that you're talking about comes into play, is they will get a coach, but they won't tell anybody. And they'll use their coach as like a secret weapon. And they'll, be able to say all their great ideas were just their own. And that's how they, their ego can come into play, because the coach can help them make great decisions. But then they don't want to recognize that they have a, kind of a secret coach on the side.
Yeah, that's interesting dynamic there that I wouldn't have thought. Like, if you're doing a great job in performing for them and helping them get to the next level, that they wouldn't be proud of the fact that, hey, I figured out a way to get to the next level, but their ego is saying that they want to let people think that they did it on their own.
Yeah, that's right. But that's not a dynamic, at least, that bothers me personally or professionally. That's up to the client's prerogative. And it's funny. Most of the clients that we serve, we can't tell people that we serve them because we sign non-disclosures.
Right.
But again, that's the prerogative of the client. And that's, my goal, my life mission is to help people get from point A to point B. And to any extent I can be a part of their success, that brings me intrinsic joy. And so, I don't get my feelings hurt if I don't get celebrated for big wins with big brands and that someone else gets all that credit. I just enjoy knowing that I helped someone do something awesome.
Right, but it would also help you grow if they would spread the love a little bit.
It would be nice, and to the people who do share, we're very grateful, but it's not expected.
Exactly. It's not mandatory, but it would be nice. Well, Natasha, if somebody wanted to learn more or get a call with you or one of your teammates, what's the website?
Yeah, we are lionleadership.com, and that's LION leadership, like the animal, lionleadership.com. You can also email info@lionleadership.com if you're interested in booking one of these 3 coronavirus planning appointments. And we have a pretty active social media account on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, we are lionleadership.atl. And then people can also find us by following Natasha Ganem, PhD, on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations on all your success, and stay safe out there. That was Natasha Ganem with Lion Leadership. This is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.